You know, we have to train ourselves. They said if you want to, they've done studies, if you want to lose weight, and you're overweight, hang around somebody that's in shape. If you're not smart, hang around a smart person. So if you want to be moral, hang around a person that's moral. If you want to be an activist, hang around activists. Why? Because there's a lifestyle that's associated with that. There's a language that's associated with that. And the more you're around these types of people, it rubs off. You get some of that. So whatever work you're trying to do, if I'm trying to be an NBA basketball player and you're trying to be a botanist, I'm not saying we can't coexist, we can't have dialogue. But if you're hanging with me, I'm spending so much time on the court, you're not going to be great as a botanist. You're going to miss out, right? If I spend so much time with you, I'm not saying we can't coexist, we can't have dialogue, we can't learn from each other. But if I'm trying to be great in basketball, I got to get with people that's training like me. If I want to be an activist, I got to associate with activists. If I want to know about something, I got to go to those who know. And I got to sit with them. I got to learn from them. I got to struggle with the information. And so that's something I think when we're talking about doing whatever work we're trying to do, we have to associate ourselves with people that are in that line of work. And we gain strength from that. We gain courage from that. We gain confidence from that.
If you have ever had the misfortune of watching me play pickup basketball, you will know that I have spent very little time hanging around ballers like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, former NBA star and activist who brought us those very true and very inspirational words. I have, however, spent an entire summer with teen change agents and thought leaders who are committed to solving society's biggest issues. And it's with that perspective I welcome you tonight. My name is Matt DeSantis. I am the founder of the Teen Think Tank Project. And on behalf of Atiya Hack-Russell, the Summer Change Agent Academy, I'd like to welcome you to the 2023 Financial Securities Policy Launch Party. Now, we call this event a launch party because not only do we review the public policy framework that these exceptional teams spent their entire summer developing, but we celebrate them. We celebrate the 500 combined hours that they've put into research an issue that's very near and dear to their heart. We celebrate the 17,000 words that they penned in an attempt to solve a problem that they didn't even create. So over the next 80 minutes or so, you'll not only learn about financial security and poverty reduction strategies that we need to take, but you'll also learn about these high potential teen change agents who have spent their entire summer working with me, Atiya, subject matter experts, and most importantly, each other to create a policy framework that we will reveal tonight. So sit back, relax, put on your thinking caps because these high potential teens will certainly give you something to think about. One bit of bookkeeping. This is an interactive presentation. We will have a question and answer segment. So I ask that you enter any questions or thoughts or comments that you might have in the Q&A function of the webinar. We'll be checking those and try to get to as many of those questions as we can when we conclude the policy presentation. So with that bookkeeping out of the way, that's the last you're going to hear from me for a while. And without further ado, I'd like you to join me in welcoming the 2023 Financial Security Research Cohort as they present their policy framework, Poverty Reduction in America, a holistic approach to financial security. Take it away, team.
Thank you so much, Matt. Welcome, everybody, to the policy presentation for 2023 for my cohort, the Financial Security Cohort. For the past 12 weeks, I've worked with my teammates to embark on a journey of self-discovery, research, and collaboration. Meeting with each other twice a week for 1.5 hours, we've deepened our bond with each other. And even more so, we've deepened our bonds with our common passion for positive change. Learning intensively about the problems in low-income America, we educated ourselves on the causes and effects on wealth disparity and brainstormed solutions to this problem. As a result, we compiled a policy framework paper that contains over 60 pages of our ideas and research, advocating for the alleviation of issues that all the struggles low-income Americans face today. We are about to present to you a general summary of the ideas that we've garnered, and hope that the information presented is as inspiring to you as it is to us. Thank you so much for coming in today, and I hope you enjoy and learn something today. I would like to hand it off to Shubham, who will play a video that he made for our introduction.
Thank you, Alyssa, for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to move on to introduce all of our research cohort and all of the members that we have in it. So it's a short video that I made that goes into each of our members and participants at Teen Think Tank Project this year.
Research of people who want to know more and want to provide solutions like our group. So I think she was really instrumental in helping us understand the topic more fully.
Especially when it comes to your race or your gender, and especially as a mother, those
evicted tenants are pushed to the very bottom of the rental market and are often forced to move into rundown properties.
About a solution, are you looking just to help people right now not become homeless? Help people right.
It's not it could be more focused to what I'm trying to say through the rest of my articles.
And usually, for the most part, there's sort of a low income threshold around them.
But they're going to be behind on their own bills, and they're not going to be able to feed their family.
And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're an academic studio, right? We have a little bit of an orientation, but then we hit the ground running. We have one or two meetings in which we discuss a general concept, and then 2 days later, we're asking you to write.
Now I'd like to hand it off to our next team member who will go into the overall aspect of what we did, Sadak.
Thank you, Shubham. So my name is Sadak. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm going to be a junior in the fall. All of us have gathered together for 12 weeks now, as Alyssa said, in an attempt to more deeply and truly understand the intricacies of the causes and effects of financial insecurity across the U.S. Our speakers have been an invaluable part of the process by giving us guidance on team building, research, and the different problems and solutions to poverty. We have all put this immense effort into these meetings, our respective papers, and our final project because we care about making change. Change cannot come simply by wishing, and we recognize that. We also recognize that poverty and financial insecurity creates a ripple effect, especially in the U.S. As housing and living becomes more and more unaffordable, more and more people are susceptible and the economy suffers as a result. We will explore this idea more throughout our presentation, but understanding that this issue is more widespread than we thought was another motivation in becoming more active in our goal for change. Our communications with peers and experts have allowed us to grow and start to attack the problem in a way that we couldn't have achieved before. Our research is the next step in the journey to helping those around us and enacting real, long-lasting change. I'm going to turn it over again to Alyssa, who will start to talk about the financial aspects of this overarching problem.
Thank you so much, Sadak. Now, I am Alyssa, as Sadak said, and I'm a senior in high school from New Jersey. And for this issue, poverty reduction and wealth inequality in America, we're going to go over 3 impediments: economic, social, and legal. I'm going to start off the section for economic impediments and really go into the housing shortage specifically, but the economic impediments focus mainly on housing and how that impacts low-income Americans' inability to go up the socioeconomic ladder. So I would like to have a presentation. As I said, I'll be focusing mostly on the housing shortage, the causes and the effects, and then some solutions. Now, why is this even an important problem? We currently have 1.5 million to 6 million housing units in deficit for the current population in the United States. We don't have enough houses for the people that we have. And not only does this harm low-income Americans who cannot afford the houses because there's such a shortage, it also costs the entire economy money. We have lost $2 trillion a year, approximately, in lower wages and productivity, and 3.5% of GDP has been lost from 1964 to 2009. And this data takes time to compile, so this is just a historical example of how the housing shortage is costing us money still to this day as it was in this past. And this is just two graphs of the historical data of housing prices and housing starts, meaning like new construction projects for houses. So as you can see, starting from the mid-1900s, mainly because of World War II, there was a steady increase of housing prices, and it incredibly increased these past few years, and it's been a problem. Whereas housing starts has mostly stayed the same, fluctuate over time, and even decreased in quantity in the 2008 housing crash and has not recovered since, meaning that construction has not caught up to the housing prices or even our growing population. Now, as I said, we'll be first going over causes and then how that leads, causes of the housing shortage, and then how that leads to lack of affordable housing, and finally, some solutions that I've researched. Now, the first part of this presentation is the causes. The three causes I'm going to go over is the 2008 housing crash, the pandemic, and then the zoning. Now, firstly, going over to the 2008 housing crash, it was mainly caused by a subprime market, which was meaning that there was a lot of loans going out to people who couldn't really afford houses. And eventually this caused the housing market to crash and the prices went super low and a lot of construction companies went out of business. Now, what did this mean for the labor force? Well, that meant a lot of workers went to other industries to work and they got trained in other industries. And when the construction industry started recovering and now we want to build more houses, a barrier to this construction is that they can't find workers because all the trained workers have gone to other industries as a result of the crash from a few years earlier. And as a result, 81% of construction companies report having trouble finding workers. Secondly, the pandemic has led to a lot of high interest rates, supply chain problems, and other complications. But one really big thing is the cost of imports for construction materials. And this is mainly caused by tariffs that were enacted recently during the pandemic, and also because a lot of foreign factories were going out of business or having a lot of closures because of the pandemic, and that really created a shortage of materials, which skyrocketed the prices of materials, and it's another barrier to construction. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about zoning, which really restricts construction with legal barriers by having local communities and governments restricting how much that they can build on a certain plot of land. And sometimes this only allows for single family homes, meaning that the construction companies are not able to create compact housing that could be more affordable for people. Now, moving on, this in a result causes a lack of affordable housing because these construction companies will end up just building houses for high-income families because they're the ones that can pay higher prices, and they can upscale their price in contrast to their costs that are also increasing. So currently 6.8 million more affordable housing units are required for extremely low-income families, and they are spending more than 50% of their income on rent when really they should only be spending less than 30%. And this is causing them to have a lot of financial issues. And also they end up living in very substandard neighborhoods where they're away from resources and opportunities, and they're unable to advance or recover from their issues. Now, I'm going to go over mainly three solutions, but I'm going to express the 6 ones that I listed in my paper. Firstly, increasing the housing supply. Secondly, making housing a constitutional right. Thirdly, increasing government assistance. And fourthly, increasing housing mobility. Fourthly, reducing sentences for nonviolent crimes, and lastly, investing in education in low-income neighborhoods. Now, I would like to focus on the first three solutions. Firstly, increasing the housing supply. One straightforward way to do this is to remove tariffs. There's a lot of tariffs on China for their imports, and that includes a lot of construction materials, and that is driving the price up. And if we simply reduce some of these tariffs for these specific products, then I believe that it would definitely help the housing market. Secondly, making housing a constitutional right. Currently, there's not sufficient legal legislation to overstep red tape, and there's a lot of thresholds that sometimes municipalities or towns want that construction of affordable housing to happen at, but this only targets a really specific part of the problem, whereas making housing constitutional right allows people to fight for their rights and overstep the local level by having the power of the federal government behind them, and also enabling them to go to court if they feel that their rights have been overstepped. And lastly, increasing government assistance. Overall, the only solution to this problem, or the most efficient way, is to have the housing supply increase, but this will take a lot of time. And currently there's a lot of low-income families struggling with the lack of housing or a lack of finances, and this is where government plays a part in helping short term. And they must increase the assistance for low-income families, and this may include food stamps or other effective programs. And now I would just like to conclude and remind you all that the housing shortage is not only a problem for low-income families who are struggling, but it's also a problem for entire America that is causing a lot of costs for all of us. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I would like to hand it off to Shabam.
Thank you, Alyssa, for that wonderful presentation. I think it was really interesting to see that deep dive into the housing market. But next up, I'm going to be sharing more about the individual solutions to this issue and present a different perspective on it that we may not have thought of before. So what my presentation is going to be is financial literacy. And so financial literacy is usually thought of as the first step in breaking the cycle of poverty, because usually it's the first initiative that people have to take in order to position themselves in a better way. The first thing I'm going to talk about is rent being thought of as an income percentage. Now, conventionally, we like to think of it as just a money value or a percentage. But here, when we look at it as an income percentage, what it tells us is that you shouldn't have to pay more than 30% of your income for rent. But when increasing costs of tenancy have led to a huge portion of the population being forced to spend above that threshold, it creates an issue because this creates a poverty gap. And this poverty gap, in America especially, is really sad, and it's the unfortunate truth. Because behind the scenes of our thriving capitalism, what's really happening is that rising rental fees and the tenants' inability to pay them is a problem that is happening across the country, and we're not able to find a solution for it fast enough to flip the situation. In fact, as a general rule, like I mentioned earlier, about 30% of income should be spent on household mortgage or rent, which means that there shouldn't be families who have to spend significantly more than that. And the mean income spent on rent is 61% of the average income, but that's well above the recommended measure, and it just serves to prove that we're not able to follow this general guideline. In fact, in the Bay Area, low-income tenants today have a much less income remaining after paying their rent than they did in 1960, showing how costs have fluctuated, but income has not. And in Charlotte and Denver, almost 50% of renters have paid more than 30% of their income on rent. And so when all of this combines together, we can see that the solutions lead to a really, really unique and niche subject. Because essentially, when we're having all of these rising, increasing costs with rent and tenants' inability to pay them, what's happening is that across America, whether it's in Charlotte, Denver, Bay Area, or anywhere else, even here in Arizona, what we're seeing is a lack of help. And this lack of help when it comes to paying your rent or mortgage, especially for low-income people, is leading to evictions. And evictions themselves have a much higher effect than we would think them to. Because these people, like I mentioned, have a lack of assistance and a lack of help. In fact, government programs are way too limited at providing such help. approximately 2.2 million households participate in the HUD program, which is the United States federal government's housing and urban development program. However, only approximately 25% of these people actually that qualify for it receive that assistance, which means that 75% of people who need this assistance from the government and who are qualified for low income help are not receiving it because the government is not able to provide it to them. And this just shows that if we can't serve everyone, then we are just widening our poverty gap and creating more chaos. And as a result of this and other factors like low wages and inflation, evictions are widespread. And once COVID-19 hit, we are seeing a more and more spike in evictions. After the COVID-19 situation, the situation escalated exponentially, causing a massive housing shortage and panic in the market. What all of this leads us to is the actual effect of evictions, because evictions themselves are much more devastating. While we can say a number and cite a numerical value of evictions, each eviction has a specific story behind it. And evictions create a negative cycle because they affect the tenant's record and therefore their ability to find proper housing. So once a tenant gets an eviction, they're no longer able to find the same quality of housing or even any housing because this went onto the record. And future landlords look at it and go that they would not get this tenant in their house. In fact, evictions can lead to stress, tensions, and emotional instability inside a family and worsens economic situations. Because the more and more that these families are emotionally tense, the less that they are able to economically contribute to their household. And kids can therefore be traumatized due to these evictions with constant moving and their families' reactions to these evictions, which leads to a generational poverty gap. Because when these kids grow up, they haven't lived a financially stable life either and are able to provide one to their kids. So what we're doing by increasing evictions is just increasing the poverty gap over generations. And when we can see that this has been going on ever since 1960s, this has really led to a huge increase in poverty, evictions, and anything negative related to the housing market. So the steps we need to start a solution to solve this crisis all start with financial literacy, aka eviction education. Because we, as high schools across the nation, have to be taught the most critical topics in order to address this problem in the best way we can. For example, we need to be taught the importance of assets, emergency funds, housing laws, the power of investment, and recovering from bankruptcies and eviction. One other thing that should be really taught is the 50-30-20 budgetary target, because this target specifically allocates 50% for your bills, which would include rent and other bills like gas and water, electricity, 30% for expenses outside of your bills, and then 20% for savings. But what's most important about this target is that those 20% highlight the importance of savings no matter what your income is. And unfortunately, this is not something that is really focused on. In fact, allocating money for savings, even $750, can safeguard a family against eviction. And selecting housing cautiously and making decisions wisely is another step in this eviction education that we need to make more commonly available. And there's this other budgeting method that can be taught, not just to the younger generations, but also the older generations, which is the envelope budgeting method, where you put however much money you want to spend in each category, like your bills, like your savings, like your expenses, and put them in an envelope. So you only spend until the cash in each envelope is gone, and you avoid overspending in any category. And then you can take the remaining money that's left in those envelopes and put it all towards your savings. In fact, one of the best things to integrate all of this education into our system today is to teach people first and foremost on how to call for help. Because when someone reaches these situations, whether they remember this education or not, it's really important that they remember that they can always reach out for help. And forming local programs, networks, support groups, and communities can help solve this goal because that will be their easiest way to get help and reach out for it. And therefore, I conclude this by telling everyone that financial literacy, aka eviction education, is a huge thing that needs to be stressed. And all of these points can help us stop these evictions and this increasing poverty gap that's been going on in America. Next, I'd like to move on to my cohort member, Adi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adib Kuman. I'm currently a junior at River Hill High School in Maryland, and I'd like to introduce you to a matter that deeply concerns our society, the pressing issues of homelessness and systemic bias. Did you know in the US, there's a reported estimate of 580,000 individuals experiencing homelessness on any given night? This roughly amounts to about 18 out of every 10,000 people. This staggering number underscores the urgent need for comprehensive and practical solutions to address the root causes of homelessness and provide adequate support to those affected. With decreasing housing supply and increased evictions, homelessness has escalated into a pressing and deeply concerning issue, particularly within the United States. As both housing costs and eviction rates continue to rise in many urban areas, individuals and families cannot secure stable accommodations within their means. This dire situation often forces them into precarious living arrangements, including overcrowded residencies and shared housing. The ramifications of these situations are far-reaching, affecting not only individuals' immediate well-being, but also their long-term prospects for stability and success. Overcrowding has emerged as a visible consequence of the lack of affordable housing. Out of sheer necessity, many individuals are compelled to share housing with multiple families or reside in confined spaces that were never intended to support living conditions. This compromises their physical and mental well-being and raises serious concerns about health and safety. Overcrowded living areas can increase stress, tension, and conflict among residents, aggravating an already challenging situation. In addition to the immediate health and safety risks, overcrowding perpetuates a disadvantage cycle. Now, in this diagram, we see that approximately 20% of renters face the inability to fully meet their rent obligations over the past 3 months, a challenge that disproportionately affected individuals with limited financial resources. Now, I want you to think about the children. Imagine what their lives would be like. As they grow up in overcrowded and cramped environments, they may face difficulties focusing on education, resulting in long-term personal and academic development setbacks. Moreover, the lack of privacy and personal space can erode individuals' sense of dignity, diminishing their self-esteem and overall quality of life. As we delve deeper into the issue of homelessness and its far-reaching implications, it becomes evident that systemic biases play a pivotal role in shaping the experiences and outcome of vulnerable populations. Historically, systemic discrimination and exclusion patterns have limited housing opportunities for these groups, worsening their vulnerability to the housing crisis. As affordable housing becomes scarcer, marginalized communities are often the first to experience displacement and face limited options for finding suitable and affordable housing. The consequences of the housing crisis extend beyond immediate hardships. Housing instability can have long-lasting effects on individuals and communities, such as disrupting one's education, hinder job opportunities, and much more. Racial and ethnic minorities have historically faced barriers to housing access, stemming from redlining, discriminatory lending practices, and exclusionary zoning laws. These practices have limited their housing options and concentrated those communities in neighborhoods with fewer resources, reduced access to quality education, and limited economic prospects. As the housing crisis intensifies, marginalized communities are hit hardest due to their pre-existing vulnerabilities. In this unemployment rate by race/ethnicity diagram, we clearly see that the Black American community is faced with a much higher unemployment rate. Historically, Black Americans have faced lower unemployment rates than white Americans, and correspondingly, their unemployment rates has remained elevated. This trend persists even when overall unemployment rates are minimal. Now, what can we do to combat homelessness and systemic bias? Well, as my colleague Alyssa has already mentioned, a fundamental aspect entails increasing the housing supply to meet the ever-growing demand. This can be achieved by streamlining regulations, providing incentives for responsible development, and fostering the creation of mixed income communities. These measures alleviate the shortage of affordable housing options, ensuring greater accessibility for individuals and families. In addition, targeted initiatives promoting affordability play a vital role in addressing the crisis. Expanding rental assistance programs and implementing rent control policies are effective means of providing relief to households burdened by escalating housing costs. By offering financial support and establishing price ceilings, these efforts help alleviate the financial strain many individuals and families face, enabling them to secure suitable housing without excessive economic hardships. Next, addressing the housing crisis involves tackling income disparities, rectifying systemic inequalities, and fostering collaboration. By implementing policies for economic equity, dismantling discriminatory practices, and encouraging diverse communities, we can create a fair housing opportunities. Collaborative efforts between government, private sectors, and nonprofits are crucial alongside sustainable urban planning for mixed income neighborhoods and provide quality of life. This multi-phase approach aims to ensure accessible and dignified housing for all, ultimately building stronger and more inclusive societies for the future. Now, in conclusion, homelessness is a complex and multi-phase issue, deeply intertwined with systemic factors. Systemic problems, including economic inequality, lack of affordable housing, limited access to healthcare and education, and discriminatory practices, contribute significantly to the prevalence of homelessness. Addressing homelessness requires a comprehensive approach that goes beyond short-term solutions, focusing on dismantling the root causes embedded in systemic structures. Efforts to combat homelessness should include policies that promote affordable housing, comprehensive healthcare, mental health services, and access to education and job opportunities for marginalized communities. Tackling systemic issues necessitates a commitment to equity and social justice, aiming to eliminate the disparities that perpetuate homelessness. By addressing these underlying systemic factors, society can work towards a future where homelessness is a rare and solvable challenge rather than a chronic and pervasive problem. Next, I would like to pass it down to my colleague, Chase.
Okay, thank you, Adif. Finishing off the the economic impediment part of this presentation. Now, I'm here to start the social impediment part of this presentation. So let me just share my screen. Okay, I'm Chase Craig. I'm going into my freshman year in college as a bio major, and I live in New Jersey. And I have a very straightforward, short presentation here. I'd probably say it's like a teaser trailer for my essay or for my paper about housing discrimination. And I also go really in depth about the Fair Housing Acts. Okay, first thing, history of housing discrimination. It was legal throughout the United States for, I'd say, like I said, like the majority of its history. I bring up specifically a set of rules called covenants, which in the 1920s, when a lot of Americans moved out and built these suburbs, they had rules, or the set of rules called covenants, where specifically banned selling houses to African American people. And an average rule or covenant, or it's like another rule, another word for rules, it would contain this following sentence here. I'm not going to read it out fully, but basically it just says that you cannot sell or rent out any property to people, to African Americans or Mongolians. Okay. Now, as I said before, I talked about how I'm going to bring up the Fair Housing Act a lot. And this was the first real bill that Congress passed that tried to get rid of housing discrimination. So I'll talk about the history about it a bit. So through the 1966 to 1967 time period, Congress was kind of arguing back and forth about putting in a fair housing bill, but never really got enough support for it to be passed. This wasn't until a couple very key events happened that really pushed Congress, or really what pushed President Johnson to push Congress, which is one, I bring up two events here. first one I'll talk about is how after the Vietnam War, African American and Hispanic veterans were coming back to the United States, and they were denied a lot of housing, and it really made them hard to come back and have like a real stable life, because after coming back from fighting from their country, giving everything for the United States, they came back and they were just denied homes. And the second event I talk about is Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. He was a very big advocate for fair housing, and his Chicago marches, or his Chicago open housing marches, inspired President Lyndon B. Johnson to push Congress to sign the bill. And President Lyndon B. Johnson thought this would be a fitting tribute to Dr. King by having the Fair Housing Act put in place. So, goals of the Fair Housing Act, as I said, it was really just to prohibit discrimination in housing. This is either because of race, color, religion, national origin, disability, sex, and familial status. Another little side goal of the Fair Housing Act was to, I guess, encourage integration in the United States. With redlining, specific groups were kind of grouped and pushed into specific areas of like low income or minorities. And the Fair Housing Act was trying to get rid of those redlining and try to get rid of those groups. So the two major failures of the Housing Act that I talk about, the first one is a lack of enforcement. Now, the lack of enforcement part is, even though that we made the act here, like we made the Fair Housing Act, it wasn't really enforced well. It led discrimination to become a lot more subtle. And instead of just outright denying people access to housing or saying that you can't buy or rent out the house, it would lead to a lot of lenders doing things like not withholding information, not giving out all like payment plans that they could do, not giving the best deals, showing fewer units in like apartment buildings, or showing less desirable units of apartment buildings. So like I said before, it became a lot more subtle. And since things like this aren't really always noticeable when you're going to buy a house, it's often hard for it to be really pinpointed and put out to get like any sort of legal settlement from it. So a lot of it just goes really unchecked. I bring up one statistic here. I will share my screen again. Is how out of 28,848 housing discrimination complaints filed in 2017 in the United States, only 2,249 were settled, 402 charges of discrimination against defendants, and 5 cases were settled by the Department of Justice. And now, this came from the National Low Income Housing Coalition in 2018. So the second failure that I talk about is how it was implemented too late. So in the United States, home ownership is a very foundational and very big method for obtaining, maintaining, and growing wealth. So by the time that the Fair Housing Act was implemented, all the minorities that were discriminated against for decades were already far behind in, I guess, in total wealth of more privileged groups like white people. So even though some minority families had higher education and a higher income than like an average white family, they would still tend to have less overall familiar wealth than them. And this was because it was implemented too late. They had too far, they're too far behind at that point when they put in the act. Next, I talk about 3 major solutions I talk about. Of course, since I said before about how there's a lack of enforcement, this leads to enforcing the policies that are already in place. So there's a big misconception that is often talked about in like arguments revolving housing discrimination is, since the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Housing Act Amendment, which comes out 20 years after the Fair Housing Act, is already put in place, then, you know, obviously, how could there be housing discrimination if there's policies put in place to prevent it? Well, if there wasn't any housing discrimination, I wouldn't need to be making this presentation and talking about it today. So some things I talk about is making punishments more strict, doing more surveillance, taking reports more seriously, and actually providing justice to people that put in and file these reports. A way that the second solution I talk about, asking for help, could kind of also help enforce the policies. I talk about private organizations where the main goal is to help people with housing discrimination claims. I say that local governments, as in like city to townwide, townwide governments, can go reach out to these orgs, and these orgs are usually made up of people that live in the community. So they know the community, the people know them, they know the people, and it's already just making a basic, like, I guess, people government relationship. So these orgs can help with public outreach. Since I said they know the public, they can help receive data and statistics from people in the local area, so they can help pinpoint where housing discrimination is more popular in a specific city or town. And they can go door to door receiving statements from people who face discrimination, which can go directly to government organizations that could help people with that. And finally, education. This is just like I say here, this can be really any form of education. Since technology and social media is so big now, you can send a message within seconds. I think, especially today, like it's very easy to spread a message or get a message out there, since you can send a text across the world, and then now someone else across the world knows what you're trying to say or what you're trying to spread. But also things I talk about is pushing topics like this in school curriculums, holding rallies or educational events, specifically talking about topics like housing discrimination. And like I said, spreading messages on social media, really anything that you can think of, as long as it gets the word out somewhere, you are helping educate people, which is, a solution. So as I said, this is like a teaser trailer to my final policy. I talk about a lot more about statistics and really in-depth things. This is just very foundational information, so I didn't talk all day. But if you have any questions, I leave my email, my phone number. Like I said, if you have any questions, if you want to have a conversation about what I'm talking about today. And my paper and everyone else's paper will be on the Teen Think Tank Project website, where you can read my individual paper, and you can read everyone else's individual paper that are here speaking to you today. And of course, you can read the final policy paper, where all of us come together and make like a 70-page policy paper, which is insane to me. It's crazy. I'm so proud of everyone here. So thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to pass it on to Rhea. She's also talking about social impediments, and she made a wonderful video for you all. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chase, for that insightful presentation on the Affordable Housing Act. My name is Rhea Rasul, and I'm going into my sophomore year. I am very excited about the work I have done here, and I hope it gives you more insight into the forgotten minority in poverty, Native Americans. They have faced social inequalities for centuries, which has led to their financial instability today. From the beginning of the white man in America, there has been racism against Indigenous peoples. Throughout history, systemic racism has left inerasable scars on marginalized communities. From the late 1400s to the late 1800s, about 5.5 million Indigenous peoples were enslaved, creating a deeply rooted racial hierarchy. Native Americans, custodians of their ancient lands, faced immense trauma from the Trail of Tears, which snatched away their homelands, only to lead them to the stereotypes which saw them as violent savages, when only they were trying to defend their legacy, which led to major consequences, including widespread unemployment as they were unjustly deemed unfit for mainstream jobs. But it doesn't just end there. Their youth were then coerced into residential schools, facing abuse and curriculum designed to erase their heritage. With little education, they faced barriers in high studies and jobs, entrenching them in the cycle of poverty. Moving on to the current-day educational disparities. Historically, Native American children were traumatized in schools, stripped of their culture, and forced into English and Christianity. Fast forward to now, they grapple with inadequate curriculum, unskilled teachers, insufficient funds, and outdated infrastructure, creating a dire learning condition. I know that I could never learn in that condition. Shockingly, 33% don't even finish high school, limiting their further education, and only 15% attain a bachelor's degree, lagging behind both Black and white Americans. This educational gap leads to employment struggles, lower wages, and a cycle of socioeconomic disparities, all leading to financial instability. From the colonial era, Native Americans have battled with workplace biases. Originally barred from owning land and modern industry jobs, they were cornered into agriculture. The 19th century furthered their struggles with forced relocation and constrained education, hindering their job opportunities. In the 20th century, they saw continued discrimination, even amidst legal protections. Today, challenges persist in underrepresentation in top positions, and alarming data even shows that 1/3 have faced biases affecting their jobs and success. Communities with lower Native American populations often lead the Native people to earn less and encounter fewer job openings, plunging many into poverty. A stark contrast in educational resources compounds the issue, resulting in elevated unemployment and wage disparities compared to white Americans. Historically, Native Americans have grappled with land ownership injustices, from the vast territories which they once held, which have now been reduced through deceitful treaties and acts like the 1830 Indian Removal Act and the 1887 Dawes Act. Today, this legacy haunts them. Despite treaties ensuring housing aid, Native Americans lag in home ownership, with just 50.8% of them owning a home compared to the 72.3% non-Hispanic whites owning a home. In homes, there is often overcrowding and the housing is inadequate. This has ripple effects. Insufficient property taxes from affordable housing means underfunding schools, leading to inadequate resources and lower education levels. These persistent disparities in education and housing amplify the economic challenges and financial instability that Native American communities have faced in modern America. Now, for the most important part of my presentation, we need to talk about solutions, because the government needs to give this problem attention. In the vast expanse of America's challenges, we often see broad, sweeping solutions touted as answers. This one-size-fits-all approach, especially when discussing complex issues like poverty, does not cater to the unique history and challenges of the Native American community. Unlike other marginalized groups, Native Americans have endured a unique tapestry of historical policies and systems which has caused their current problem. Blanket solutions from food assistance to family tax credits only provide transient relief. Instead, we must zone in on 3 primary pillars: empowerment, education, and opportunity. Empowerment. Historical injustices have stripped Native communities of their land ownership and economic autonomy. To truly empower them, we must restore their land rights and negate unjust treaties. This means recognizing past wrongs and initiating reparations and fostering Native financial institutions with ample funding. These measures will grant Native Americans the autonomy to revitalize their economy and reclaim their legacy. Next, education. Financial stability starts with a robust educational system. To uplift Native American communities, we need to significantly boost the quality of schooling and resources, from teacher training to curriculum enhancements. Additionally, our textbooks fail to present the whole truth. A shocking 87% of textbooks talking about Native American experiences are pre-1900s, perpetuating negative stereotypes. A comprehensive understanding of Native American history is essential, not just for Native students, but for everyone, to breathe empathy, awareness, and agents of change. Opportunity. Overcoming financial instability isn't just about dollars and cents. Addressing the deep-seated trauma Native Americans have endured through compensation and counseling is pivotal. Moreover, we must lay foundations for housing equality, offering financial support to break the vicious cycle of property undervaluation and underfunded schools in this community. My final solution, which is very close to me because I am a Canadian, is taking inspiration from Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a Canadian organization that works towards the reconciliation of Native peoples and the government's relationship. They created 94 calls to action for the government to complete, which leads to more recognition of Indigenous communities in Canada. The U.S. needs its own dedicated commission, one that amalgamates the voices of Native communities and crafts actionable solutions based on comprehensive research. With a more direct community-driven approach, we can not only address the immediate challenges, but we can also pave the way for a harmonious and equitable future. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you all have a great night.
Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. My email is listed below. And next up is Sadak talking to you all about a newer minority group, undocumented workers.
Rhea made such an amazing presentation. Again, my name is Sadak, and I'm focusing on undocumented immigrants because over the past 2 or 3 decades, the amount of them in the US especially has grown, inciting immensely xenophobic responses and laws. However, there are ways to help. So, in 2019, it was predicted that there were around 10.3 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, comprising 3% of the total population. Those who enter the country are often fleeing oppressive regimes, gang violence, or poverty, and are looking for new opportunities. But when they come to the United States, they are granted little, if any, help, which is because these immigrants do not have the relatives, jobs, or legal aid to help them achieve asylum or other types of status. The restrictive nature of legal immigration means that they have no way to become authorized citizens nor to gain financial or even social mobility until a new path is created. Moreover, this fear of being forcibly sent back to possibly dangerous environments and the absence of social support systems or legal protections available to them in the United States keeps them from reporting the exploitative behavior they face from employers and finding stable housing. Rising xenophobia not only aggravates these problems, but continues to fuel the movement to isolate and hurt these immigrants even more so. The search for housing is never ending for undocumented immigrants, as their average household incomes are often too low to afford safe or outdated housing. Coupled with the fact that members of this population are often met with xenophobic and racist responses, the number of opportunities for them to find affordable housing is lower because there are fewer people who want to work with them. Landlords that are willing to often offer subpar housing in what they deem as less desirable neighborhoods, which are primarily formed by the discriminatory practices and policies of banks, real estate agents, and landlords, which is called redlining. This keeps them from gaining wealth, especially generationally, as they are restricted from social support and programs in the cities. In addition to finding adequate housing, undocumented immigrants struggle to gain wealth because their workplaces also restrict the economic growth of these laborers. Even though many undocumented laborers have some form of higher education, they're usually placed in low-skilled jobs because of discrimination or lack of availability in their areas. These kinds of manual labor professions, like those in agriculture or construction, are already low in wages, but to compound issues, employers often exploit these workers by offering substandard wages, not giving lawful benefits, or creating dangerous working conditions. If the employees do choose to speak up, they risk being reported to ICE or detention centers, of which there are many examples of. Many Americans write these problems off because they believe that the amount of undocumented workers is negligible. However, in 2020, unauthorized laborers made up a huge percentage of the workforce in comparison to their national numbers. Additionally, it is predicted that because of labor market segmentation, if mass deportation did occur, the economy would lose around $8 trillion over the next decade and a half, requiring years and years of recovery. These people are vital to the financial health of the country, but are paid illegally low salaries, which contributes to their housing instability. They are silenced at every opportunity and ultimately ignored for the work they do, keeping them in a state of poverty. Another obstacle to the social and financial mobility of undocumented immigrants is how they are viewed in the United States. The stereotypes that exist to vilify undocumented immigrants, specifically non-white Hispanic ones, have been primarily used to create a highly negative and homogenous image of this diverse group of people. This problem has become so prevalent because of nativist politicians who attack groups with limited voting power. With the rise of such figures like former President Donald Trump, as well as other MAGA Republicans who repeatedly use harmful rhetoric against these immigrants, their public image keeps deteriorating. This bias, whether unconscious or not, links legality with morality, which is incredibly destructive and can lead to intense profiling. Furthermore, this negative public perception of undocumented immigrants means these individuals are often denied employment opportunities, medical assistance, or educational opportunities. Some of Trump's quotes are listed here, showcasing just how much of a negative image is placed on undocumented immigrants. But by using a combination of individual accountability and action, along with government-sponsored intervention, we can begin to address the social biases that are preventing poverty reduction strategies from taking hold in America. The short-term solution is to help educate the public so that their negative opinion of undocumented immigrants changes for the better. Each person should familiarize themselves with strategies to identify and oppose the onslaught of fake news, like strengthening their media literacy, fact-checking, and promoting diverse and inclusive narratives. And while each individual is ultimately responsible for educating themselves, there is still an emphasis on the group aspect of this solution, as many are calling for government funds for media literacy programs, especially for young people interacting with the internet for the first time. Moreover, individuals can support organizations that work to fight prejudice and false news, like the Anti-Defamation League, the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, and the League of Latin American Citizens. In time, programs like DACA and sanctuary city policies can flourish with renewed public support. DACA was introduced in the United States in 2012, and its aim was to protect young immigrants, which were referred to as dreamers, from immediate deportation. The program gives children the chance to receive social benefits, educational opportunities, and enter labor markets that offer them stable and better paying and safer jobs. Furthermore, Dreamers and DACA participants benefit the economy around them, as their presence has created almost 90,000 jobs. However, reforms must be made to benefit the undocumented immigrants and children of this country even more so, as they are still disadvantaged in a number of ways. Some suggestions include offering protection for more family members that is normally capped to 1 or 2 members, comprehensive financial help like being eligible for retirement or healthcare funds, and faster paths to full citizenship as the Biden administration plans. A second, more local government-sponsored solution comes in the form of sanctuary city policies. These are meant to create a trusting environment between immigrants and local law enforcement by limiting the city's involvement with federal authorities, like ICE. Beyond barring ICE officers from arresting residents as much due to federal and local jurisdiction, these problems can include English classes, issuing identification and driver's licenses, giving everyone access to bail, and educational programs for lawyers on court proceedings. By fostering this kind of relationship, criminal activity, including employer exploitation, is reported more often. This has led to lower crime rates, especially domestic violence against Hispanic women, higher household incomes by almost $5,000 yearly, and lower unemployment rates. However, these positive outcomes cannot grow unless efforts are made to create sanctuary cities in New York, LA, Houston, and Dallas, where undocumented residents are highest. Further changes include widespread education in English, more communication between the different cities' programs that can help the immigrants move, connect with family, or find jobs in new or better places, and a bigger emphasis on financial aid. Because like DACA, most of these families still do not have concrete ways of getting healthcare or higher education. To conclude, efforts to address the inequalities undocumented immigrants face start with a more positive public view and can culminate in comprehensive immigration policies that provide pathways to legal citizenship, enforce labor standards, and promote access to affordable housing for all individuals, regardless of their immigration status. Now, Anshu will take over to talk about the legal aspects of this problem.
Thank you, Siddharth. We began our presentation with a discussion on economic impediments, where we discussed financial issues on an individual and societal level, and discussed remedies for these issues. We then continued with our conversation on social impediments, where we determined the issues causing financial inequity in terms of societal bias and inequalities for various minority groups. Now we move to discussion on legal impediments, in which we discuss ways by which ineffective policies in place today can be remedied to better serve the communities they work for. My name is Anshu Chirukameli, and I'm a rising high school junior, as well as the research associate focusing on the remedying of these ineffective policies. Legal impediments, in a way, is a culmination of the issues we previously discussed. Economic impediments focuses upon the solutions that need to be made for the basic existing issues in place, for example, homelessness and unaffordable housing, and the financial education and change which needs to be made for these issues. Social impediments focuses a level deeper on societal issues which cause these economic impediments to be in place, for example, pre-existing bias and systemic oppression of certain racial groups. Legal impediments focuses on the most action-oriented part of it all, the laws and legislation which get the final say in actions made on a societal level, which then determine the economic issues faced by individuals and by focusing on these legal impediments last, we're able to holistically understand the full picture behind what causes these issues to come up in the first place and work on identifying actionable issues within our legislation, which will help to create change on a societal level. So I'm going to get my presentation on SSI benefits up. Today, with my discussion on Social Security programs in America, I'll be elaborating upon what exactly the Social Security program is, its history, reasons contributing to its shortcomings, and solution efforts which can work towards improving these issues. The SSI program within America is a major social welfare program that provides monthly payments from the government to people with disabilities and older adults who have little or no income or resources. Currently, around 8.5 million Americans receive Social Security benefits each year, and with these individuals mostly being elderly individuals with disabilities. However, the SSI program has the capacity to assist far more recipients. After all, nearly 2/3 of applicants are denied benefits when they first apply. With the immense 37.9 million Americans in poverty today, it's imperative that those in need get help, and fast. The passing of the Social Security Act, while originally aimed at keeping American families out of destitute conditions, currently utilizes unreasonable limitations that severely limit the program's reach, thus limiting the socioeconomic flexibility of the American lower class. This issue requires multifaceted efforts targeting public education, lobbying efforts, and cooperation between the public and the government to cause long-term improvements in the Social Security program. The SSI program was originally created at the beginning of the Civil War, creating opportunities for generous pensions for disabled soldiers and their families beginning in 1862. These provided benefits for soldiers with disabilities incurred as a direct consequence of military duty. This connection to disability was broken in 1890, allowing any veteran to participate in the program. By 1910, Civil War veterans and their survivors were receiving disability, survivor, and old age benefits in a program known as the first Social Security program. Soon, pensions in the workplace had also begun to popularize. By 1932, 15% of the workforce received pensions. Due to changes such as the Industrial Revolution, the urbanization of America, and the Great Depression, which left 2 million men roaming America for work, and most of the elderly dependent, the first Social Security program developed in 1934 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Beginning from a meager payment in some places as little as 5 cents, the Social Security program has since developed to a widespread program aiming to provide for the material needs of individuals and families, according to the Social Security Administration. However, it barely manages to achieve the goal. One of the main flaws which causes the Social Security program to be so ineffective is its extremely restrictive qualification requirements. The SSI program can't give out benefits to everyone, so its solution is to create a series of eligibility requirements an applicant must fall under to be able to receive benefits. This sounds like a good idea in theory, but once we start to take a look at the requirements specifically, it becomes clear that meeting these requirements is a struggle in itself. Currently, SSI qualification requirements include those who are aged, as in age 65 plus, disabled or blind, worked long and recently enough to accumulate 40 work credits, usually meaning working for 10 years, since you can earn no more than 4 per year, worked and paid Social Security for 10 years or more, have limited resources, meaning total assets of less than $2,000 per person, and they must have limited income, as in less than $1,913 in income per person. These qualifications are extremely difficult to manage due to how tight they are. This is seen extensively in income limits, for example. Income limits in the SSI program are the maximum amount of money an individual can make in a given month or year to still qualify for the program. Currently, the average cost of living per month for a single American adult is $3,189. The current threshold for monthly income for SSI applicants, $1,913. This monthly income limit doesn't even account for deductions and taxes, which, if factored in for an individual earning $1,913, would result in a monthly take-home pay of approximately $1,690. This meager limit, barely above 50% of the monthly cost of living in America, is extremely unreasonable to force upon individuals in need. This is not only seen in income limits, though. Resource limits, the limit on the total monetary value associated with the countable asset someone has, are limited to $2,000 for a single individual, with couples being allowed even less per person, with $3,000 total or $1,500 each. What's worse, income and resource limits both account for not only anything directly owned by an individual, but for any assistance they receive, including, for example, living in a public shelter or receiving monetary help from friends or family. Even any resources given to an individual by friends or family is translated to monetary value, causing individuals to appear much more well-to-do than they really are, and consequently decreasing their benefit or even making them ineligible for the program. This issue consequently prevents individuals from exercising economic flexibility, as these tight regulations penalize individuals from attempting to achieve progress, causing them to risk their SSI benefits, which often also come with Medicaid eligibility, housing assistance, and other benefits. For example, if an individual were to attempt to find a higher-paying job to better support themselves, they may risk most types of financial assistance they currently receive, which could put them at an even greater risk than their current state. If they attempted to set up a monthly cash flow from their parents to themselves to better support themselves, that would factor in as well. These unreasonable qualification requirements cause people in need, most with families to feed and take care of, to have to make a choice. Improve my living conditions now, hurting myself in the short term by losing out on benefits, but maybe gaining more money in the long term, or stay where I am, regardless of long-term effects. For most people living on a paycheck-to-paycheck basis, the magnitude of the short-term struggles they face make it impossible to think about the long term with much weight. If I can't put food on the table for my kids this week, does it matter what job I have, what college they go to a few years down the line? These choices aren't easy, and families need assistance to be able to move out of this pit of poverty. It's imperative for individuals in need to gain progress and momentum in their careers to move out of poverty. After all, a subpar job with poor income leads to poor living conditions, poor education for children, and a resultant chronic cycle of poverty. Current SSI limitations prevent individuals from attempting progress in their careers, effectively locking them into poverty throughout their lives and potentially passing these consequences on through generational poverty as well. It's therefore imperative to bring about change and end these chronic cycles of inherited poverty through multifaceted efforts dedicated to creating change in all aspects of the flawed SSI program. So how do we do this? Public awareness about such a powerful yet flawed policy is crucial. Bringing about this awareness can rally individuals to first better understand the flaws in the system at hand, and then work with public policy organizations such as CLASP, an organization that works to advance policy solutions for individuals with low income. These types of organizations can help to bring change by demonstrating widespread public support and advocacy for these issues. Programs for those outside these vulnerable communities would include education regarding issues such as the levels of poverty, which acknowledges the idea that poverty isn't just a line to be crossed, but rather a complex issue with multiple stages. A $2,000 limit doesn't dictate a boundary between someone in poverty and someone not in poverty. Rather, poverty requires multiple phases to escape from, all of which vary based upon an individual's unique factors. Recognizing this complexity of poverty leads to the solution of public outreach programs for those directly suffering from the exclusion of the SSI program. For people attempting to escape poverty, programs such as volunteer-led interview trainings, professional help, legal counseling, residential assistance, childcare and family programs, therapy programs, and more can be incredibly useful for individuals attempting to escape poverty, whether currently receiving SSI benefits or not. These opportunities help bridge the gap between simply escaping the poverty line and living as a secure participant in today's society. Community-led efforts can help to implement these programs with individual towns or groups of urban populations, allowing these programs to come to fruition. Public support of these programs can then eventually influence legislative action towards the permanent implementation of such resources for those in need. These solutions can help to shift public understanding of poverty, helping to propel a more manageable society for those suffering from financial insecurity. While policies are in place, it's seldom that policies as widespread as the SSI program are questioned, thereby increasing the power of programs which are just ineffective. We need to change the program behind SSI benefits. The issues outlined in my paper only cover one part of the issues behind this program. The program also oppresses minorities through its exclusion of certain groups based on immigration status, provides inadequate benefits overall, and includes extremely tight regulations for especially people with disabilities and children. This program is meant to be helping our people, not to force Americans into living in subpar conditions just to receive the help of their own government. Staying in poverty promotes an almost inescapable cycle in which parents unable to achieve proper education and an adequate job result in poor living conditions in a poor environment and pass on poverty to their children, who in turn receive a poor education and inadequate job. Solving poverty today promotes the security of future generations. Proper SSI benefits, regulations, and recovery resources have been long deserved by the American people. If you would like to reach out with more questions or for any additional information on this topic, please contact me at my email address, which I listed on the slide. I also encourage you all to check out our policy framework paper, which is to be published on our Teen Think Tank project website, where all of our projects will be better elaborated on. We need to change the number of flaws within the legislative system and fast, and the SSI program is just one place to start. Thank you. So now I'm going to be going into a general overview since we've concluded our economic, social, and legal impediments portions of our presentation. Throughout our presentation, our cohort members touched on specific topics regarding a variety of different impediments. Starting with economic impediments, Shubham focused on the lack of financial literacy and fiscal responsibility in the United States, where they discuss how a 50-30-20 budgeting method and incorporating extra financial literacy into the public education system be two effective solutions. Alyssa, meanwhile, focused on closing the gap in the housing shortage and aiding low-income families by enforcing affordable housing as a constitutional right. Adi's discussion on homelessness and systemic bias then helps to develop an understanding of the role of income disparities in creating social systemic inequalities, as well as how to deal with these issues. Chase then discussed the Affordable Housing Act and its shortcomings, as well as the issues these shortcomings created for future systemic bias. Raya then tackled the lack of representation and recognition for the inequities faced by Indigenous communities, while Sadak focused on the bias constantly forced against undocumented immigrants. Finally, I concluded with a look at legislative issues relating to economic inequity, focusing specifically on the issues within the Social Security program within the United States. Throughout the policy framework, the group repeatedly utilized the solutions of public education programs for education about discrimination, bias, and flawed policy, as well as collaboration with the government through rallying of the public and volunteer efforts to increase economic equity to those in need. By providing these solutions, the group provides a holistic view of economic inequity in America, the reasons behind it, and many solutions to remedying such a large issue. Once again, I encourage you all to visit our website to learn more about each of our individual topics and to gain greater insight into what issues need to be remedied within our society through the articles each of us wrote. And with that, I'll hand it over to Raya, who will be giving us a closer look at international poverty.
Hi everyone, as you know, I am Raya, and something you might not know about me is I'm from Canada. And I just wanted to come on here and show some of the actions that Canada has taken in the past few years that can be, solutions to for the minority group of Indigenous peoples. And these are direct solutions that the U.S. can use as an example when trying to solve the problem of poverty within Indigenous communities. In my article, I do speak about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission within Canada. So as a refresher, basically what that is a commission tasked with discovering and revealing past wrongdoings by the government. And basically their hope is to resolve conflict left over from the past between Indigenous communities and the Canadian government, as there were a lot of harsh actions taken by the government in the past. And of course, people in Indigenous communities, everybody holds grudges, and since there's been so little apologies for what has been done and so little recognition, of course they're going to be upset. So basically the commission's job is to try to solve that problem and make sure that they're no longer upset, as well as solve the problems that they currently have to improve the relationship between the government and these communities. So I contacted the commission with a few questions about Canadian taken actions. I was put in touch with their research coordinator and was provided with sources that could answer my questions, and these are specific examples of what Canada has done and what Canada has not done and what they need to improve on. in order to solve many of the problems apparent in Indigenous societies. The Government of Canada has currently established job positions specially designed for Indigenous populations, namely the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. This is an initiative by the Government of Canada that basically works to make sure that the workforce in Canada, and specifically in our government, represents the diverse population of Canada. Also, the Government of Canada has launched an Indigenous Skills Employment Training Program. And basically, this program assists Indigenous Canadians in enhancing their skills and increasing their employability. There's also another program, which is the Centre of Aboriginal Human Resource Development in Winnipeg, which extends employment and training opportunities for Indigenous individuals. They're very similar, but the Centre for Aboriginal Human Resource Development is only in one province, which is like a state in the US, and that it makes it more specific and directed to each person who needs help from them. Another Winnipeg organization is the Maui Chi Itata Center, which offers various supports to Indigenous Canadians. They facilitate employment for community members regardless of their academic qualifications or skill sets, because it is recognized constantly that in order for them to make their life better, Indigenous First Nations people need access to jobs, because a job is the first way to get out of their problem. If they have a job, then they can afford a house, and if they can afford a house, then they're more likely to be in a better area, and the better area is more likely to have better education for their children. However, challenges still do persist. Indigenous Canadians face inequalities as they are often marginalized. They grapple with racism, discrimination, stereotypes, and violence, just like in America. These adversities impede their integration and success within larger Canadian society. There's definitely a noticeable gap in understanding and addressing the issues with Indigenous communities. A silver lining, though, is that more educators are heading to reserves to teach and bring much needed education to these communities. I myself know only one of my teachers has done that, and I wish that more teachers would do that, but he shares his experiences with us, which also teaches the kids in our school about the different inequalities that they face. As investments growing in addressing the needs of Indigenous communities, particularly education, prospects for their employment improvement. Yet it raises a question: should we value Western and Canadian educational systems? The rich tapestry of Indigenous knowledge is crucial. If the government could recognize and uplift Indigenous knowledge as they do Western education, Indigenous communities would have better standings in Canadian society. Same with American society. If we could just prioritize Indigenous education, then and what they have learned in their past and the different parts of their culture, then maybe they would have less of a bad stigma around their name in both societies. Speaking of reconciliation, there is still work to be done by the Canadian government. Although efforts are underway, more focus and resources are required in order to reconcile the relationship. The path of reconciliation is long, and considering the deep-rooted history of cultural harm inflicted upon Native Americans, a collective approach involving the Government of Canada, the Canadian public, and Indigenous communities is vital. Just like in America, you need the American government, the American public, and Indigenous communities to work together in order to solve all these problems. The collaborative effort of all these people is pivotal in addressing historic wrongdoings, promoting education, and ensuring that Indigenous Canadians find their rightful place in our society, because that is what they deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raya, for that presentation. And now Chase and I will be giving a short presentation about people we would just like to thank for making this all possible.
Okay, so in this presentation, specifically, we thank some guest speakers that came in and talked to us about either our policy, how to improve our policy, or just basic skills like leadership and how to talk. And we also thank our teen think tank organizers, and of course, our research cohort for everyone else here.
So first, starting off with our guest speakers, we wanted to thank Mary Pascarella, who came in the very beginning and taught us about financial planning, and especially taught us about the 50-30-20 method, which Shubham talked a lot about in their presentation.
Next is Donna Gallup. She's a professor of social work. She specializes in teaching and resourcing at housing for service delivery. She specifically showed me a video about fair housing and redlining, which heavily influenced my own paper.
Next, we'd like to thank Chris Pilkerton, who came in. Chris was the former head of the U.S. Small Business Administration and talked about some efforts to increase the power of small businesses in America today, and as well as legislation regarding these businesses, a way to increase investment in poorer places in America.
Next is Valerie White. She came in rather recently, and she talked about her role in a government food bank. And specifically, I think one of the biggest takeaways from her is her persistence in trying to get us involved in our local governments and teaching us ways on how to actually contact local governors and how important it is for young people to really get involved in that, because we are the ones that actually make change.
And next, we had Connie Whitman, who came in the very, very beginning and taught us about different leadership and communication styles. And that really helped us to all get acclimated to each other in the very beginning and learn how to work with each other and how best we can adapt our needs for each other.
Andrew Campbell, he also came in rather early in the entire cohort. He's a leadership coach. He's a former TEDx speaker. He's an award-winning author. He came in, he talked to us about leadership. It was also very early, so it kind of was like a big getting to know everyone or getting to know each other, as in the cohort members. But yeah, he came in, he talked to us. Thank you.
So next, of course, we're gonna thank the people who organized this program. So first we want to start by thanking Matt. Matt was the one who organized every single one of our meetings this entire 3 months, and he always had all these thought-provoking questions for all of us to answer. He came up with I'm pretty sure he came up with the curriculum, and he really helped us hone in on what exactly we wanted to focus on with this. Personally, I was not very well acclimated to this entire world of financial insecurity and stuff. I hadn't really taken a deep dive into it until now, but Matt really helped us all, especially he helped me to understand exactly what we were going to be going through, understand this topic really clearly, and he really helped us cultivate an understanding for what we were working on.
Next person is Bernadette. She also helped create our coursework and the space where we have here, where we're able to share our ideas and our own individual, the policy papers, and the big one that we made. And she's really just the MVP behind the scenes.
And last, but of course not least, we want to thank Atia, who came in, and Atia is a college student, and on top of all that, she comes in every single week and helps us finalize our papers, figure out exactly what we want to say in our papers, make sure that everything is as clear as it possibly can be, and she does a lot of work outside of meeting times as well in order to make sure that we're all performing to the best of our ability, which we really appreciate.
Next, of course, is the research, all of us, the research cohort. Everyone here is actually in the call today. We all wrote our own individual papers, all helped write the big policy paper, and throughout it all, with only while we did all write our own individual pieces, we all came together. We helped edit each other's, we helped advise each other's, we gave ideas, and yeah, obviously this paper wouldn't be here without everyone that's listed here.
And of course, we want to thank the audience. We're so thankful to everybody who came in today. It means a lot that you took time out of your day to come and watch what we've worked on for the past 3 months. So thank you for your support.
Just one final thank you to everyone involved, the coordinators, team think tank organizers, all the guest speakers, of course, everyone that's here today, listening to us talk about what we've been doing for the past 3 months. And I want to give my own personal thanks to everyone else that I was privileged here to work with for the past 3 months while writing my paper. And of course, I loved helping all of you write all of your own papers. And I think you all are very amazing individuals. I'm very proud of what we all accomplished in these, few short months. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much to everyone. And with that, we're going to hand it over to Matt.
Thank you, team. Fantastic. These last 3 months have been enjoyable, engaging, enlightening. Every time I participate in one of these cohorts, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how many problems we have in society, but I am more amazed at how dedicated and passionate you are all to committing yourselves to change those issues, none of which you created and all of which you will inherit. So a big round of applause to you all. You deserve a tremendous amount of thanks for your effort, not only for your effort in this cohort, but your effort within society, fixing the problems that my generation and previous generations are going to leave you. We've got a few more elements that we need to cover. We have a few awards that we would like to hand out, and a few thank yous and final thoughts that we're going to leave you with. But before we do that, I just want to take a few minutes and get to know each of you a little better. And to help me do that is going to be the aforementioned Atia Hack-Russell, who spent a significant amount of time with each of you working over the last 12 weeks. So I think nobody better than to facilitate a little question and answer than Atia. Atia, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt. And thank you, everyone else who have joined us this evening. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you for still sticking around. And thank you all, my amazing cohort students, for your presentation. You guys have done a phenomenal job. I just want to quickly say that before we get into quick Q&As. And also thank you very much for your kind words. I truly appreciate it. It has been a pleasure working with you. So to start us off with the questions, the first question I have is for Sadak, which is, what was the biggest challenge in conducting your research?
I would probably have to say that the biggest challenge while writing my paper and conducting my research was finding accurate numbers and data on the population, income, and jobs of undocumented immigrants in the United States. The reasons why are a little bit obvious, just that they take great effort in like trying to keep themselves hidden from either local or federal governments. However, I didn't just find underrepresented numbers. Many sources actually exaggerated quite a bit just because they were sites that like published fear-mongering or prejudicial misinformation, the kind that I was like talking about in my presentation. So it took a lot of time to just kind of find that baseline, unbiased, and like statistical sources that could be included in my paper to kind of build the foundation for the opinions and the solutions that I was going to share. So in the end, I was successful, but it took a lot of time to get there.
I can definitely imagine, and thank you so much for sharing. Truly appreciate it. Next on the list is Anshu. The question I have for you is, how does it feel to be a change agent? Now that you've done this amazing work, how do you feel now being in working towards becoming a change agent and being a change agent?
It feels really good, as you might expect. Like as high schoolers, I don't think we get a platform that often to share what we want to say, unless it's in like a presentation that we're giving in class. So it's really great that we're given this platform to be able to share our voice about things that matter. And it also, like, this entire program has really given us like a way to like channel our thoughts instead of just like not really knowing where to put what we want to say and how to say it exactly. So it feels really good to be able to like produce something that we can put out into the world and be able to look back at it and be like, wow, like I did that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad that you're feeling that as well. Next is Chase. The question I have for you is, how did this experience overall differ from your traditional school-based projects and or class?
I think a big thing is the overall scale. Like, I've done pretty big things in my own like classrooms, but not as big as like creating a 70-page policy about like countrywide issues that actually gets published and put out for people to see. So I think that's probably the biggest change, is how it's a lot more public. It's a lot more big. The scale's, a lot bigger.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that as well. Truly appreciate it. For Adib, I have a question for you. Do you think there's hope that we can successfully reduce poverty? If so, how? What do you think will be some of the challenges we may face in accomplishing this?
So yes, there is hope that we can successfully reduce poverty by implementing a multi-phase approach that combines targeted social policies, equitable economic growth, and improved access to education and healthcare. We can make significant strides to reducing poverty.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Truly appreciate it as well. So now I have Alyssa. I have a question for you. The question is, what was your favorite experience as a member of this research cohort?
I think my favorite experiences was really being able to talk with my cohort members and develop my interests in my specific interest. And I really learned a lot about myself and appreciate the opportunity for me to be able to connect with others for that same passion.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the insight. Truly appreciated. And now, last but not least, Shabam, I have a question for you. How has your perspective on the urgency of this issue changed from day one of our cohort to now? Now that you have finalized your research, you have a presentation, you have a paper, amazing. How has your experience and perspective changed now?
I think that when I first started this project, right, I knew what evictions were, but it was just some kind of a faraway concept because you don't hear about them as often, especially because, like, personally, I live in like Arizona, right? And so it's a little bit secluded from some of the more major cities where this happens more often. But just researching throughout these past 3 months has led me to see that there's so many different cities around the world, not just like Milwaukee, the Bay Area, Denver, Charlotte. All of these places have really, really different experiences, and there's like much more rising rates, which was kind of alarming. And it made me realize that it's something we need to stop now, or else it's just going to continue spreading and no one's going to do anything about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shabam, for sharing that. Truly appreciate that. Um, that concludes our Q&A at the moment. I'll pass it on to Matt now. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, great stuff, team. Really appreciate your insights and your process in going through this entire program and presentation. It's really been a pleasure to watch you go through this and grow and develop the intellectual humility and growth mindset that is so important, not only for progress as individuals, which it certainly is, but also for progress as a society. So once again, congratulations and thank you for your hard work. One more piece of business that we need to tackle, and that is our academic awards. Now, we are a self-guided program that relies very much on personal accountability, but what high-performing student does not love a little external reward? So we implemented the academic awards, which provide our students with some external feedback on their performance. The first program that we put into motion was our honors program. That is the reward that we provide any student that accumulates more than 96% of all available points. So assignments, meeting attendance, journal entries. If you can accumulate 96% of those assignment points, you will graduate our program with honors. To show you how hard that is, despite the fact that it is totally objective and straightforward, if you miss 2 meetings and you hand in 2 assignments late, you don't typically qualify for the 96% threshold. And in this instance, we had one research cohort member who was able to attain that. That honor goes to Chase Craig for an outstanding job. Well done, Chase. In addition, we award a Research Associate of the Month. This is a recognition that we bestow upon the researcher that goes above and beyond, that really separates themselves during a specific element of our program, specifically during the early stages when we are just forming roles, forming teams, and creating the foundation of our program. And in June, that Research of the Month was awarded to Alyssa. And in July, it was awarded to Rhea. So it's probably no surprise then that those 2 individuals are our finalists for our 3rd recognition, which is the Most Outstanding Research Associate. And this is the $500 cash scholarship that we award to the research associate that best exhibits the values of the Teen Think Tank Project throughout their time with us. And both Alyssa and Rhea proved to be exceptional leaders. They proved to be worthy researchers and just generally awesome teammates. Unfortunately, we can only award 1 scholarship. So this cohort's Most Outstanding Research Associate is awarded to Alyssa XU. Congratulations, Alyssa. Alyssa, you want to say a word or two?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And first, I'd love to just thank everybody that worked with Matt. I think that you're extremely passionate and genuinely interested in the youth of our future. And I can feel that you have so much care for this big project that you have, the Teen Think Tank Project. And that's not something you can say for anyone, for everyone. And I think it's a very rare thing to see, even from my own experience with adults or people around me. And Atia, I'd like to thank you as well for being so kind and patient and always overeager to help no matter what I ask for. And you're so helpful. And I can see you have such a pure heart. And I see a huge and fulfilling career path ahead of you. And I wish you luck in everything. I think we can agree that we look up to you as a role model for our future selves. And I'd like to thank you for that. And with all my cohort team members, I'd like to say that you all inspire me very much as well. You guys are all such exceptional people, and especially since a lot of you are also younger than me. I can see a lot of myself in you guys, and I can see that you have a lot of potential, so much intelligence, so much initiative, and you guys really inspire me to keep working hard and working towards our dreams. So thank you again for everyone that put together this project and anyone in the management that I don't know about.
Thank you, Alyssa. That is certainly an honor that is well deserved. Your hard work was certainly noticed, not only by me and Atia, but your colleagues as well. So congratulations. We are just about to wrap it up. However, since we are a teen-run program, I try to make it a point to not interject myself into the proceedings more than necessary. I certainly try not to give advice or words of wisdom, as I have very few of those. Besides wear sunscreen and work hard, I don't have the secrets to life. But I am going to leave you with some words of wisdom, some advice, but that is going to come from somebody who's much closer to you in terms of their stage of development, someone who hopefully you have seen as a colleague, and someone that you will also see as a mentor as you chart your own paths as change agents. So for a final time, I'm going to hand it over to Atia for closing thoughts and final words.
Thanks, Matt. And thank you all so much for your kind words. I honestly, I'm bashful over here. I really don't know how to articulate 100% fully as to what I am feeling at the moment, except my deepest gratitude and sincerest gratitude for your kind words and for working with me as well this past 3 months. How crazy that it's been 3 months. Wow. Wow, time surely flies. But hello everyone as well. For those who are still in attendance, my name is Atia. I am a recent college graduate, currently living in New Jersey, and by recent, I literally just graduated this May with my BA in psychology and a minor in health and society. Kind of crazy to even still think of that, honestly, but that just goes to show how time flies and what you can do in the amount of years you spend time in school. So I actually wrote a little spew for everyone, but I also will interchange by also, speaking my thoughts as they come to me. But for guidance, I'm going to start off by saying thank you again, Matt. Hello, everyone, again. My name is Atia. Thank you all very much for attending tonight's cohort presentation, as it is truly appreciated. I had the great pleasure of being the Financial Stability Cohort's research assistant for these past 12 weeks this summer. And first and foremost, I want to congratulate and express my sincerest gratitude to my amazing cohort, Alyssa, Shabam, Adiv, Chase, Rhea, Sadak, and Anshu. Congratulations on such an astounding job. Job well done. Whether this was your first major research project or just one of many others, know that you have produced such amazing and impactful qualities of work. And for that, you should feel truly proud of yourselves. For you guys have done stuff that people have not yet done, and some are still in the process of learning. So that is commendable in itself. So once again, I shall reiterate that you've done a job well done, and I am sincerely proud of all that you have accomplished this past summer. Additionally, I want to thank you all for allowing me to be a part of your journey and story this summer. I truly enjoyed having the opportunity to see you all grow and develop into the amazing researchers that you all are continuing to be today. Because research, you have that foundational skills, but you're always learning, you're always growing. There's always new developments in the field, new skills to acquire, and new knowledge to learn. So keep on practicing the research basics that you've learned. And you all will be lifelong researchers in some shape or form as you continue to progress forward in your future endeavors. When Matt first offered me this position prior to the start of the summer cohort, I will attest that while I was aware of the expectations and responsibilities, I did not know what to really expect regarding my experience. However, you all have blown me out of the water, as you guys are really my first cohort of students. You've blown me away with your passion, dedication, drive, and hard work, and I'm truly happy to have had you all as my first cohort of students, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about the amazing work you will continue to do in the future. You all are change agents and lifelong learners in the making. Take the skills and knowledge that you've learned today and continue to develop and grow them as you continue to create such impactful works in the future. Conclusively, this is the end of one chapter. However, it is the start of a new one, which can always be a little bit bittersweet, but hey, that's the process of life, you know? One door closes and another opens. While this is not a goodbye, you can think of this as more of a see you later and a future hello in the making, you know? As Matt and I will always be here for you all in some shape or form, so don't ever hesitate to reach out, whether it's just for a hello or if you just want to chat about something as you guys continue on your paths to college in some cases, or future opportunities in others, or continue on with high school. You know, you're all on different journeys of your lives, but that's incredibly exciting. The road ahead is unpredictable, but that's all a part of life's challenges and all a part of life's stories. However, the one thing I can attest is keep the momentum of keep moving forward, which segues into two quotes that I actually want to leave y'all with, as they are momentum that I still try to attribute as a part of my life in some shape or form. The first being tied to one of my favorite childhood films titled Meet the Robinsons. Now, it's not one of those popular Disney films, but the message is kind of cool, and it's actually a really cool film, so check it out whenever you guys have the time. It was made in 2007, so it's up to y'all as to whether or not you want to see it. But the quote that I leave you with is, around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. The second one, and it's tied to encompassing as to everything that we've done as a cohort together and what you all have created in your foundation and will progress forwards to being, is change agents. Be the change that you wish to see in this world today. Because yes, as Matt has stated, there's a lot of problems in this world, and sometimes it could be a little daunting in regards to how to tackle it all. But all I can say is that you take it one step at a time, and you know, keep that momentum and drive going, because it's not going to be easy, but no good thing in life happens with ease. It all comes with time, patience, and teamwork, which you all have shown, and you all have, and as evident in the project that you've produced. And you know, it's just about communication and just keeping that drive and passion alive, which you all have. And on the plus side, we're part of the same generation, so I'm with you in this journey as well as being a change agent, wishing, you know, doing all the change we can do in this world. So conclusively, thank you all. Thank you, Matt. 100%. It has been a pleasure being your research assistant this summer. I look forward to seeing what the future holds for the both of us, and likewise with this amazing cohort, I look forward to hearing and learning all about your future endeavors, and just, you know, keep the magic alive within yourselves, and have a great rest of your evening. And thank you for listening to this. I greatly appreciate it.